Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Weyandt, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast sponsored by Applied Software. You're invited to join our MEP and construction innovation adventure with a mission to propel this great industry forward. My guest today is Peyton Kringlie. He is a business analyst with LS Black Constructors. He leads his company in all technology and innovation efforts. Peyton recently wrote an incredible article highlighting the difficulties of technology adoption, specifically in the construction industry. Best part about it is he provided insights from psychology research to help support his thoughts. Welcome to the show, Peyton.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat and talk about my article and other things.
Let's do it. So to start off, I hear you grew up with a family-owned construction company. Would love to hear about that and how it led to you yourself getting into the construction industry.
Yeah, so my family owns a material supply company out in the Dakotas, Prairie Supply Inc. A little shout out to them. But so I kind of grew up kind of in the business atmosphere, the entrepreneurial construction, seeing the whole nine yards. And then I went to University of Minnesota and kind of was trying to levy out what I was going to do. And like most, they kind of, you kind of look at your family and see what they do, and you naturally kind of, scope that out. And I went into business and kind of saw the overlap within the construction industry and business. And was super interested in it, and took that path, picked up construction management. Started off as a project engineer for a company, interned, and then was a project engineer at LS Black. And that's kind of where it's led me to now as a business analyst, working on the technology front for the company and kind of leading that charge.
Yeah, awesome. I always love hearing people's journey into the construction industry and what pulls them in.
Yeah, no, it's there's always, all sorts of different routes, whether you come up through the trades or, whether it's family related or whatever it may be. It's kind of cool to see something that's, at the heart of America is, construction. So
Absolutely. It seems like there's a ton of family connections. That seems to be a very prevalent theme that pops up in a lot of people's stories.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. So for those who haven't read it, a couple weeks back, you wrote a great article that I mentioned in the intro, Tech Profiles, Attitudes Towards Technology. Do you mind giving kind of a brief summary of that article?
Yeah, so my article's purpose was to kind of create a context of the issue of a technology adoption, generalize it enough so that the general audience can read that and go, okay, yeah, our business has issues with, purchasing a software and utilizing it to its full capacity. And then I took it down a notch into the micro world of what construction is, and then try to even highlight it even more prominently by showing, us placed in the MGI index as second to last within, all industries.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just really highlighting, where we lay within the context of all industries and then within ourselves. And then I laid out, the technology adoption mindset and the market adoption and stuff like that. And then I rolled it down into trying to figure out what specifically, from an individual standpoint, where I can make a change within within my company, within my industry, give insight. So then I was, searching around, and I found Colin DeYoung from the University of Minnesota in his research on technology adoption. And these three factors from a factor analysis were generated from this study, and I thought it was really interesting because it kind of aligned with what I was thinking as I laid out in that article, kind of showing the different kind of sections of people and their attitudes towards technology. Mm-hmm. So it's always been my interest in, how do we get past there, and how do we take the things that we're given to help, the people that are having issues with adopting technology.
Yeah. Anything kind of surprise you in the response or reaction to the article since you put it out there?
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of feedback on it. from anywhere to my family, obviously within that, and then people within my organization. My old faculty director at the University of Minnesota reached out to me on it. So I did that article more for me to structure my thoughts and convey my thoughts and my mental processes in a way that was attainable for others to kind of comprehend and read. It did take me some time to kind of, generate the entirety, and then obviously structure it in a way that was, attainable for others to hear. And now I think that because that I've done that, I've been able to compress that and explain it in a way like now where I'm talking about it. So
out of the technology profiles you spotlighted, which were confidence, approval, and interest, what do you find is the most prevalent in the construction industry?
So specifically to the construction industry, I think, within that standard deviation of from the tech enthusiasts to the pragmatics and to the conservative laggard skeptics, I think that the number one issue, or not the number one issue, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but the number one area of focus for me is obviously confidence. But I think that confidence leans into approval. And I guess I can take this time to kind of just quickly go over all three of them, and I'll start with approval. So approval is basically buying into the process, the voluntary, your people are excited for technology, and getting them there. They have to be confident enough to use it, or they have to just think that it has utility. And I always think a good coaches, get their players to buy in regardless of the X's and O's, and then they figure the X's and O's out later. You got to get people to the technology front and buy into it prior to putting them in positions, to succeed.
Right. That vision casting is huge.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, my takeaway from this was to sell. And, on one hand, I'm in the group of people that are trying to explore and discover all these innovations. And then on the other hand, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's realistic for my group of people to operate.
Yeah.
And, so I have to constantly be this filter of selling. So that was my comment of selling. So I'm getting sold things, I buy into it, then I have to replicate that and sell it to my, workers,
Right.
which is, incredibly difficult. And that's part of the reason why I try to figure out ways to explain and understand the people that I'm going at, talking to. And I guess I'll touch last on confidence, because I think it creates more conversation to construction, but I'll quickly go over interest. This is the one I scored perfect in, which is to no surprise, within my career progression and kind of my divergent interests. But some people in the organization have extremely high interest in technology, and they're kind of locked in their little cog, kind of do their own process. But, giving people the ability to explore these environments within technology and experiment really kind of stretches the limitations of the systems. And I think that's, on that deviation, I think that's the far left side. That's the people that are kind of the visionaries, the enthusiasts, the people having conversations like this, and what gets them excited about doing this. And I try to group those people in my tech committee, and I try to, then that crafts subject matter experts, and it gets tech-centered brains around all the different divisions, breaking down silos within the company and stuff like that. So that's the interest one. And then lastly, confidence. And that's the one, like I'd said, that I think that saddens me the most, as far as, because it's got kind of a negative application to it, because it's kind of about people feeling anxiety while using technology and not having the confidence to use it, or kind of avoiding it altogether, to never even want to use it. And sometimes I think we need to put people in places to succeed for them to be confident. And to me, this is one that I obviously am trying to work on the most, especially with like field staff and other members in the construction field, construction team, is to make it so that they know that they can do these things. And we've all been impatient when we're working on things like, let's say we're putting together, putting together a couch, and you're just like up to here on using the tools. And I think that I relate to that in some capacity, and understanding, people want to throw the iPad out the window.
Hmm.
Um, and part of it is because there's groups of populations that haven't had exposure to technology. They've kind of lived, in some regards, they've lived their whole entire life doing a thing a certain way.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden there's this tidal wave of exponential growth within the technology world. And now they're nearly forced to use it.
Right.
So I think that each of the three factors, I think, has some utility in trying to, figure out how to combat and help people cross the tech front.
Do you see any kind of fluidity of these mindsets of people moving between the three, or are you kind of stuck in one until you move to another one or something? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. So I think it is a battle of those two fronts. That's in my article. I pointed out it's kind of bad podcasting talk to talk about a graph, but um, on one end you have your tech enthusiasts that are extremely theoretical, and they see what's on the horizon, what's inevitable.
Hmm.
And then on the other end we have the people that are going, I don't know if that's implementable. And to me, as important as innovation is in technology, so is the implementation and being realistic and pragmatic about how we go about that. And I do think that there is some fluidity in understanding that, you know, you can be interested, and you can be nervous about using something, or you don't have to approve on every single system. It's just that you have to find some commonality in your company, in your industry, and be as pragmatic as possible. And that's kind of what my article tries to attempt to do.
Hmm. Uh, how have you found kind of some maybe best practices on how to encourage those people that need a confidence boost with technology? How do you encourage them that the tech isn't as scary or unattainable as they might think?
Yeah, I think to me it's partly a security thing. I think some people are nervous that they're going to break it, or
Mm.
that they're not, they don't have the competency to do it. And I really try to, one, you know, be with them while they're doing the process, showing them, here are all the different functionalities and features.
Hmm.
Being there with them gives them some sort of some security, along with giving them some exposure to it.
Hmm.
So you give them kind of the guardrails to figure out, how to do things, and then you compliment them. You tell them, you know, you're more brilliant than you think you are. Like there's field guys out there that are breaking down the most technical systems in construction, and then trying to tell me that they can't, use an iPad or whatever it may be. And I'm like, you don't even realize how brilliant you are, right? Like,
Right.
technically. And I think that just getting people exposed to that, and that exposure can warrant a higher anxiety ceiling while using the tools.
Hmm. Do you see a generational difference in the which profile that you're more likely drawn to?
Yeah, I think it's quite evident in my little small sample size of my company that, you know, generationally, the older generation had issues more so with their confidence than the younger. And, I think part of that is because we have, for the first time ever, we have all these generations were in the workforce at one time. I think it's like five or something,
Hmm.
first time ever. That creates a pretty big distribution of, you know, competency in a lot of these things, while one group was literally born with an iPhone in their hand.
Right.
Um, and the Moore's law, the doubling of processing power every 18 months is kind of a huge driver, because it's exponential, while we're kind of stagnant, in our generational growth. So, we're always going to have that battle of younger generations being much more suited to use technology, and just because of lack of exposure. But I do think that, um, you know, we can definitely marry the two concepts of having people that are very fluidly intelligent with technology and software and things in that nature, while having these experts that have been in the business for 40 plus years in their knowledge that they've obtained. And I think this topic obviously is a big one right now because of the whole ageism, and I want to avoid that whole concept. I think it really is, understanding that groups of people didn't grow up with things, but they're still have huge utility, and they can do, you know, they can use technology at some level. Um, but this will increase as we, live longer, and younger generations are born with AirPods in their ears, and um, I do think that combining that, the technical knowledge from older generations with that crystallized knowledge with the fluid knowledge will be where we create an art. So
Yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna jump up on a bit of a soapbox here that regular listeners will have heard me say before, but I'm a huge believer in the concept of reverse mentoring, and that's where you get somebody that has the real world technical how-to knowledge, pair them with somebody that is great with the technology, have the real world person teach the tech person what it actually is like in the field and how to actually do it. And then you have the tech person do the same for the technology, and you're creating that kind of cross pollination between those different mindsets. And this it's not necessarily a generational thing. It could just be the comfort level. You could have a millennial that totally hates technology and doesn't want to do it. Um, so I think creating kind of those conversations, and even those mutual understanding that you see the other person as just that, another person with different set of skills and different set of strengths, and you can really help exponentiate the growth of the team, and just the ability to be able to tackle more processes and projects, because you need the tech and you need the real world
I,
experience. You can't get away
I
with.
yeah, I completely concur. I think that really flips, some structures on its head a little bit, because you got, the reverse mentoring kind of really, it it allows for more collaboration and equal footing, and strengths and weaknesses, and really getting the best product out of each other. And I think that was summed up perfectly
Yeah,
with what I was trying to
it,
talk
it
about.
allows
Yeah.
for that respect for the other perspective as well too, because I think especially as uh, more younger generations come in and uh, kind of demand uh, the culture aspect of more collaboration and more inclusion, and just hearing those different perspectives. I think that that's going to become hopefully more prevalent, because people are going to be pushing for that mindset shift, which
Yeah,
it is a mindset shift.
it definitely is. I think of course that, taking things as like just the confidence concept, and applying it to, people aren't confident in things that they haven't done before. Everyone's a
Right.
fool until they're an expert.
Yeah.
That it requires that. And um, yeah, I think that as we continue to get older, and as we have more and more technology adopted in our lives, I think that yeah, that warrants a lot of equal footing with that. So
Yeah, I loved your line just there about everybody's a fool to their an expert, because I think it takes a little dose of humility when you're trying to implement new tech with whatever comfort level people are at. They don't know as much as if you're the expert on the technology, they don't know as much as you. So have a little humility and have
yeah,
a
no,
little
for
patience.
sure. Yeah, I'm the first to eat my piece of humble pie when I don't know. It's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing that you don't. And like I think that that's what launched me into technology, because I wasn't afraid of just feeling completely, you know, like a fool,
Yeah.
and I've learned an extreme amount. And um, yeah, I think it's a really cool cool place for the construction industry to, in the next handful of years to get to that place. So
Yeah, for sure. So once you kind of have a awareness of where you fall on the spectrum, what should people do with that?
I think once you know where you fall on the spectrum, there's kind of the self reported, looking at yourself and going, okay, well, I'm extremely low in interest. That doesn't surprise me. I could give two craps about it.
Mhm.
But let's say it's confidence, and you want to become more confident in it. Like that's one of your goals. You take what I basically had thought of and tried to articulate and expand your own thoughts on it and try to say, okay, if it's exposure, how do I get myself to incrementally, work on that,
Mhm.
um, and guarantee that the other two factors go up as well. If you're exposing yourself to something, you're naturally going to wonder how it's working, and you're either going to have a opinion on whether you accept it or not.
Mhm.
So I think they all kind of work in tandem, and the goal is for approval. Whether you approve of it or not, whether you're on one end and you want to know how it works before you approve of it, or if you're on the other end and you're kind of more, just you've never been exposed to it, so you can't really make a decision on it. And that's kind of where I would give people the insight to try to figure that out. And then if you're a company trying to implement a program, you can think and cater specific groups. If they're low in interest, maybe it's not about giving them a test environment. It's about just just they want to know if it works, and if it works, you just show them how it works and what they're saving money on. And that, I always tell people low in interest that, or low in interest, low in approval, trying to sell to them, I go, you spend 14 hours on average. Oh, sorry, that was my sound. 14 hours a week, just looking for files. It's just stuff like that, just to try to persuade them into savings and stuff like that. So
Mhm. Yeah, I like it, making it real to them on
yeah,
what the real world ramifications of it is.
yeah,
So in my view, one of the biggest kind of stumbling blocks to tech adoption is really stems from a lack of true collaboration and good communication. And that's most likely due to all the silos that we've
yep.
created in the industry. Uh, First, do you agree with that? Am I on the right track there? And then if so, how do we go about correcting this?
Yeah, so I think construction is a really specialized industry, and specialization also means silos. It means
Mhm.
that you're creating systems of highest and best use. We have subcontractors that, operate within their system, and they rarely reach across, to collaborate and figure out better solutions. They're kind of, using their skills to be effective as possible, and rightfully so. I mean, we need people to do the best versions of what they're doing. Um, but like I'd said, that causes all sorts of conflict with collaboration and trying to reach across those silos and really create commonality of conversation, and try to, remove such the stringent barriers on those operations.
Mhm. Where do you think the culture of the company kind of comes into play and impacts tech adoption?
Yeah, I think making technology not like a isolated on an esoteric island where, you know, that's the tech guy in a closet and he plugs in cords and I have no idea what he does.
Yeah.
I think that in all reality, as a project manager uses subset skills in finance and, HR and trying to manage everything within the project, technology is a subset, component to it as well.
Mhm.
And I think that people also need to be excited about the opportunity to innovate and make their lives easier and make the lives around them easier. And I think that tying back and echoing onto the approval thing, um, the most spirited, enthusiastic people should be approving of your systems first and foremost.
Mhm.
And then it trickles around them. But one component of it is like, what I always find interesting is also getting the people steering the ship to be involved. And at LS Black, we've my boss, he's a CFO, and he had said that technology needs to be who we are and what we do. And to me, that means it's not its own item. It's literally involved in every process, in every structure, in every portion of the company.
It's part of the DNA.
Yeah, it's exactly it. So I think just having, that mindset and framework, I think really, allows for the implementation at every level. And then I also think like back to everything with a cord can't be classified as technology, and everything that doesn't have a cord is technology. I mean, I think I struggle most with just defining the terminology along the lines of technology, whether it's technology, evolution, innovation, all these different kind of keywords that kind of just get thrown around that just lump right back into technology.
Yeah.
So, I always just think about how people use iPhones every day, but no one ever thinks that the people with iPhones are tech guys. It's just, it's adopted. It's a part of, it's a subset part of their lives. And I think that getting there is kind of the end goal.
Yeah, for sure. So how would you go about helping to foster that innovation?
I think like you had said about collaboration, I think broadening your range of resources automatically allows you to configure highest and best use outside of just your world.
Yeah,
So I think one, technology allows those pathways to communicate and collaborate at a way higher rate,
sure.
which is extremely prominent. And then, you know, encouraging collaboration, I'd say.
Mhm. And I think people would be amazed too as they share how they're using the software with other people or whatever tech they're using. The other group may have a different use case for it, but may be able to speak into, oh yeah, I'm doing this with it, but have you thought about doing XYZ? That may seem totally outlandish to the group that originally started, but then they think, oh, well, it's a different perspective. Yeah, I never would have thought about that, but that's a great use case for it.
No, I think that's exactly, when I try to define the terminology of innovation and where that aligns, and what also is trying to be effective and kind of, evolve within your organization and your process. It's a balancing act between the two. And, that collaboration component allows companies and divisions and industries and things like that to kind of look over the edge a little bit and go, oh, you guys are using that for that? We
Mhm.
could totally use that, or that's what you call that term? Well, we
Yeah.
call it this. And it's as simple as just finding commonality of vocabulary that can be super powerful, I think.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So you've mentioned the words innovation and evolve or evolution a couple times. Can you kind of unpack that a bit more of what's the difference between those two and just expand on that for me?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm working on is trying to actually articulate that in a way that's, you know, to me understandable. But to me, I think evolution in itself is kind of more convergent and reductive, and I think it involves reorganizing resources to be effective. And it's kind of like reduction of waste within a system. So
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to eliminate all the things that don't work to be the highest and best use. And each iteration of that creates generations. And that's what we call, out of evolution, we have the iPhone 10.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like if you download a software and then they come out with a new version, and that new version kind of debugs and updates and just makes incremental change that makes it faster or smaller or bigger or whatever it may be. Um, so that can be confusing too, because you think of innovation, and innovation is, it's not that the iPhone isn't innovative or doesn't come out with new releases that are innovative. It's that the the reduction within that system is the evolution part to me. And then in innovation, it's much more like creative and divergent. and it adds new features and it replaces old systems with new things that may include that system and then another thing that's even better.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's a system broadening its range of use instead of the opposite, where evolution gets rid of everything that it's not.
Hmm.
So I
does
think,
go for it.
oh, yeah, you can, and this is a thought that I'm obviously working, to complete as well. So yeah, what were you going to say?
Does the innovation then come first? Like, are you innovative and then you take the whatever innovative idea and start to create those incremental changes for the evolution of that concept?
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to why I think it's a subtle art of a combination of the both, because while you're divergently creating as many options as possible, you're also removing the options that aren't possible.
Uh,
So you have to create the options at some point. You have to create the new thing, or you have to move laterally in the silo to see, collaborate cross horizontally before you build the thing up like in a silo. So
mhm.
to me, those are the two elements. As you're building upwards, you're building a silo because you're creating something that it's not, or you're eliminating the things that it's not to create something.
Mhm.
Um, and at the same time, if you want to add features to it, you have to kind of understand what the features are that you're adding to it are.
Mhm.
So it's kind of an abstract, topic to explain, but I think I think that what ends up happening is we create these silos that are extremely specialized and they have the highest and best use. But let's say the mechanical contractor, you know, moves into the electrical space, and understanding both of those probably generates some new solution because they're able to broaden their skill set,
Mhm.
and become more innovative. I think that I think it's a balancing act, and the reason I say that is because the openness to range may seem wasteful to the people that want to cut the waste out, while the people that are reducing the potential solutions may not like it because it may feel stultifying or stringent, and it lacks all room for innovation and improvement. So it's a
Mhm.
balancing act of those two.
Yeah, for sure. I imagine that it really loops back to what we were talking about earlier, that in order to have that effective, you have to have good collaboration where you're getting outside input to figure out what is useful, what is not useful. I know me personally, I can get so involved in my own project, I get way too close to it that
Yeah,
I like get my blinders on. I'm like,
yeah,
no,
and
this is the greatest thing in the world.
you create a cognitive bias around where
Yeah.
your domain is, and then just take someone from somewhere out to look in and go, wow, that doesn't make any sense. And I think that a lot of times it's a balancing act of those two, because you obviously have to make what you're working on the best version of it possibly can be, to remove everything out, but it may need another fresh set of eyes that are outside.
Yeah.
And I think that, aligns a lot with where a lot of delivery methods are kind of going with like the DevOps or the design build. They're kind of the agile grouping.
Mhm.
It's kind of putting the designer, the builder, and the operator under one umbrella, and kind of removing those handoff silos that occur, that you're compressing information and then the next person rebuilds it, and then they compress and then it rebuilds. Where what ends up happening is you put everyone under the same umbrella, and the subcontractor is working out of the same model as the architect, and there's a one-to-one conversation happening constantly,
Mhm.
and just getting that can create some consistency and commonality. And what the architect may think in theory would work may not be what the subcontractor knows to work, and
Right.
it's just getting that conversation to be held for commonality that can solve so many issues.
Yeah, I more than agree, and I think that's been an area that's been lacking historically in the industry, is just simply having those conversations and a space to really hear the other person and um, approach it with that humility that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think we need to explore the landscape of problems and solutions, and then also like find and make decisions on those and build them up. So I do think that we're never not going to have subcontractors that are specialized in what they do. They're going to think that there's a way it's no different to me than when you go see a surgeon, the surgeon is going to recommend surgery because that's what they do. Where
Right.
if you go to a physician, they may recommend something else because that's what they do.
Right.
And you could view those as two separate silos, but then get them in the room and they can discuss the commonality between things and really collaborate on a solution. So
Yeah,
that's the way I envision it.
I agree. So what gets you kind of most excited about technology or something that's kind of piquing your curiosity?
Oh man, I think that there's all sorts of things that I'm kind of interested in particular. Um, following organizational structures is one that I'm interested in, as far as like looking at like a Tesla or an Apple and how they try to again break down those silos and not try to build out divisions. I think that that's an extremely interesting concept. But
Yeah,
at the same time, I know how useful hierarchies are and structures and things in that nature.
there's a
Um,
balancing act there.
yeah, exactly. It goes back to what I was talking about. Um, yeah, no, I think there's all sorts of, I think of things in a business sense a lot of times. Obviously construction related, but also, operational and stuff in that nature. But um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be excited for on the technology front. I mean, just reading about how we're using technology for the vaccination creation and just stuff in that nature. It gets me really
Mhm.
excited to read something like that, comprehend the concept, and go, okay, where else could that process lie along? So I don't know. What about you? What are you most excited about?
Uh, well, I really like your answer of going outside of the industry, even of where you are, and pulling in all the cool stuff that's happening outside of AEC and figuring out
Yeah,
how that looks and how that applies to AEC in general and construction in specific. Um, uh, I'm excited just about the sheer possibility and potential that is out there right now. I think construction is really at the dawn of a great age of construction, with so much tech coming in, so much uh, their own industrial revolution kind of taking off here. That the potential for construction to look and act and be radically more efficient in the next 10 years, I think is strong, and it's there. And I see a lot more people kind of latching on to that vision and buying into it, to start creating that kind of tidal wave coming in. And
yeah,
I think that's
I
awesome.
I completely agree. I think it's exciting to envision a world where the construction industry adopts a lot of you know you know similar operations to related industries, manufacturing, other things in that nature, and just knowing that it is possible for us to adopt those things. But also, just what excites me about construction is the traditional aspect to it of where it could be and what it'll look like, because I don't think it'll completely unconserve its integral structure. I think it's a cool balancing act, like I mentioned so often in this in
Yeah.
this interview. I think it's cool to envision what could be, whether it's the Tesla of the construction industry, and what kind of products we make, and the sustainability factor, and all these different things that we can progress on by just getting people in the right room, right? Like
Yeah.
we had said, to create solutions. And I think technology creates the pathways for that at a much higher rate. And we're
Hmm.
seeing it now. I mean, we're having a conversation, uh, you know,
Yeah.
miles apart from each other, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I really truly believe that in the next couple, decade or two, you're going to see the innovation leader companies like a Tesla or Apple have been. You're going to see construction in that mix as well, and there's going to be some construction company that's going to pop up and take that mantle. And I think that's really cool. The potential to be the tip of the spear is right there, and
No,
I think
yeah,
we're about ready to see it.
I completely agree. It excites me, and when I see that, that index of a second to last, it just shows to me potential. It's what it means to me. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, how do people get a hold of you and find out more information?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, or Peyton Kringlie. I'm gonna try to generate some more articles, and I'd like to, have more conversations with people like yourself, and really stretch my limits of thought so that I can create a better, product of thought for others, and that collaboration component. So you can find me on LinkedIn, R. Peyton Kringlie. You can shoot me my emails on there. Yeah, I'm open at any time. Um, and yeah,
Awesome. Well, final question. What does innovation mean to you?
innovation to me means that we're identifying the problems while generating as many solutions to those problems and implementing them back into the real world.
Nice. That'll do it. Awesome. Thanks so much, Peyton, for coming on. I'm excited to read more of your articles that you're going to be putting out there.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it a lot.